Welcome to the Blind Tinkerer's Workshop. Well, I'm going to start on this project now, and I'm going to document everything by way of video and snapshots. I ordered two different capacitors. Unfortunately, they're both radial leads. One is 68 microfarads at 50 volts, and the other is 68 microfarads at 63 volts. So I got them both in. One came a few days ago and one came in today. I formed them up, and I put 48 volts on the 50 volt capacitors and 58 volts on the 63 volt capacitors. So I'm going to videotape this. I did not get the diodes in yet, but I am going to pull the board, and once I do that, the scope is going to be apart and nothing else will go on the bench until it is done. Got my metal tray here. I keep my parts in, so I'll just put that off to the side. I may have to speed this video up because it'll probably be very long if I don't. Now, what we have in here in the trace for my own notations now is the handle I broke off of the plug-in because I cannot get it out. It's corroded in the back end on the guide pins, and I put all kinds of oil in there and penetrating oil, you name it, doesn't move. And the two screws and nuts and lock washers. I'm just making a note to myself here that these go in to hold these two coils which are suspended here. Alright, so what I'm doing now is I'm removing the 4 screws, and I'm going to have to get this, might be off camera a little bit here. I'm removing the 4 screws that are in all 4 corners of the scope here in these rails. And these are Phillips machine screws, not self-tapping. There is no self-tapping in this scope except what I put in. Now, we got 4 of these on the 4 corners, and now I'm going to be removing this one here on the middle rail on the right hand rear side. And now these 3 that I put in are self-tapping sheet metal screws, which I bought at my local hardware store. Remove these, and this one here, which holds it's a support for the fuse holders. Alright, so now this back is loose. This side is free. We'll get this magnetic tray out of the way here for now, so we don't knock anything over. And I'm going to just show this part is loose. But we need to concentrate on the other side and see if I can get a shot in here. I put it on macro, and I need to document this. Now, I got to turn the scope over like this. Alright, make sure I'm recording. I had to take it off the little tripod here. So this is the board, and we got to loosen these, and somehow I just want to get enough video on it. Somehow I'm going to have to hand hold the camera, which I don't want to do, but I gotta either cut these wires and mark them, or unsolder them and mark them, but then I don't know how I'm going to mark them. I can put tags on them, but the tags will be big and sloppy. Oh. Trying to avoid cutting any wires any more than I have to. Alright, what I'm going to do off camera is I'm going to unhook this clip right here on the top where I'm shining my light. Unhook that and free that wire out of the way. Alright, I got that wire out of the way there.
Alright, I got a wire up here. This wire goes over. Okay. Can't quite tell that mess in there. Not without my eye lope, I can't see that. So if I can work on this board without removing it off this panel, which I can now do once it's pulled out, that would be good. So let me examine that. I want to get a few snapshots in there too.
Now this is a little hairy because we got a black and a white wire that's pulling on the harness, which is connected immediately to the power transformer. In other words, there's very, very, very little leeway there. But where the capacitors I got to replace are right here. It's going to be awful hard for me to get in there, especially on those last three. I can't pull it out any more than this, so I'm going to be snapping wires off. And that's what's really holding me right there.
Well, I just want to get enough video so that if something comes off, I'll hopefully know where it goes. And I'm not sure if this is stranded wire or solid wire. If it's solid, it will break off. If it's stranded, it'll flex quite a bit before it does snap off. I want to test these rectifiers. On the second capacitor in, which was running warm, the old one, when I put the new capacitor on clip leads across it, the max voltage that goes across at least the first two electrolytics is between 24 and 26 volts. So these are 50 volt rated, so it's fine. On my Fluke 73, when I set it to AC, I was getting less than a half a volt AC across the capacitor. In other words, the ripple. But I didn't put the scope on it. I did earlier. So I did a quick test, and so there's a possibility maybe the diodes aren't shorted. And if the diodes are not shorted, and every single one of them tests okay, I'll probably leave them. Because I was supposed to have them in today, and they did not come in the mail. It said delivered by the 15th. This is August 15th that I'm doing this. So I want to make sure I got enough video documentation here. This is more for myself. So I may speed this video up. Okay, I loosened up the two nuts. Ooh!
That hurts. on the bathtub condenser, because I need to get behind here for the diodes to test them or to replace them. So I ordered this from eBay. These are very, very, very hard to find. It cost me $7.50, I believe. I used to have 2 or 3 of these. 2 or 3 of these. Can't even speak today. And like everything else, they must have got scoffed up in that damn auction there and got rid of all my stuff. So I had 3 or 4 of these in my toolbox, various, scattered around, because I worked for Aikens Electronics and I got wholesale discount on the things. So I had to order one of these. These are hex, no, 6-point, and getting right in here is perfect. Now, I'm going to remove that and see if I can set that aside. I want to get a few snapshots of these wires too. Because if I can avoid taking the board off, because that involves removing more wires over here. If I can get that out of the way, then I can put my leads down there and test it. And then I need to test these resistors. I need to check everything on this side of the board and really examine these diodes and make sure that no leads are ready to break off due to corrosion. So I'm going to commence loosening the rest of this out. And what we've got here, no, we don't have a failure to communicate. We've got the ground for this connector, which I'm still waiting for the plug to come in the mail. That's going to be towards the end of the month. The number for this is buried underneath, and you have to remove this off the chassis in order to get the number of it. But I've got some help between my viewers and on the Antique Radio Forum that I think the one I ordered was the correct one. So let me take this out. And what we've got from my own notation is a white wire here. And it looks like a black wire here on the right side. And a white and a gray. Now the white would probably be neutral and the gray would probably be hot, and the black, in this case, is grounded right to the screw on the back panel. Alright, so like I say, I'm documenting everything here. I've got a wire here that's being stretched right here. Well, actually, that wire isn't the problem right at the moment. I got the bathtub capacitor loosened, and I got a red wire. It looks like a violet and a white, and a blue and a white down on the transistor down here that is in the way. And it's really putting a strain on those wires. But we're going to give it a try. We're going to work on these electrolytics, because that has nothing to do with the diodes on the other side. We're going to replace the electrolytics, and then I'm going to test the diodes. I'm going to do it in that order.
More notations for myself. We've got 2 wires going on the collector of this transistor, the 2N1546. Blue and white. Alright, we're going to have to disconnect those 2. Well, at least wise this one. Then I'm not sure which is the emitter and which is the base, because it's not marked. We've got a violet wire on one of them and a white and green wire on the other one. Again, for my notations, I've got another wire sitting over here, and I can't tell what that is. It looks like a white one with a blue stripe, but it's very hard for me to see it. Yes, a white one with a blue stripe right here. Now that is I got to disconnect that. That's going to be fun putting back in. Then I've got this red one down here All these wires have to come off in order for me to pull this out.
Well, I don't have wire markers, and it's a terrible, terrible sloppy job. Let's hope these don't fall off. I marked the wire here, and you can't really see it good. I don't know how I'm going to get it back on there again. But it was on this terminal here. So if they don't come off, that'd be good. I'm just using these labels that I've had for many years, and I'm just writing 2 letters and then cutting the tag in half. So it's the best I can do. I don't have multicolored marking pens. It would be good if I had that. So we got to cut this red wire, and that I don't have to mark because it's the only red wire that, as far as I know, I'm going to have to cut it in the middle. I have no choice. Or down close enough where I can see where it goes. I got the caps off, and here I can remove the board from this, take this screw out and this screw out. But the question is it going to release me, or am I going to still be hung up with wires? As I can pull this out, but I'm still hampered by these wires here. I tested all the diodes, and they're all good. So I'm not going to change them, even though I got the diodes coming in the mail. But right now, I want to get the capacitors in, so I'm going to attempt to loosen these up. And if I can't get the board free enough for me to work, I want to get this thing out of the way. It's very difficult with this thing in the way here, getting my face right down. I have to have my face very close to my work. Alright, I'm down to the collector wire, the blue and white wire, and the gray and brown wire on the bathtub cap. Now I'll be able to work on this pretty easily now because I can get at the board and do it pretty good. I'm still restricted, but not to a point where I won't be able to do anything. Now with this removed, I'll be able to work in here. I just try to avoid disconnecting a lot of wires, but we're going to have to label these. Although this is gray and brown, I mean white and gray, I guess, or white and brown. Okay, so that's the input. Now, to my pleasant surprise, this is stranded wire. So that's going to make my life a lot easier. Well, I got all the capacitors in. I double checked all the diodes again just to make sure I didn't overheat them. All the capacitors have been changed. I tried to lay down as many as I could. The 2 on the right hand side I wasn't able to. There's not enough room because it would the negative top of these capacitors would touch, and I wouldn't want that, or touch the leads, whichever way I faced them. So hopefully these 2 vertical ones will fit. Like I said, there's no voltage over 26 volts that I measured so far. Well, I only measured a couple electrolytics, so they don't really have to worry about the voltage becoming too high, because all these coils here are between 30 and 35 volts. These 3 bridge rectifiers, such as the print is, as close as I can read it, the max AC that comes out of any one winding is 35 volts or 30 volts, depending on which of the windings. Well, I had to do a Mickey Mouse here. I was afraid of that because there's just not enough room to bring it over here. without pulling this board way in, and then I can't work at it. There's one thing to cut them out of there. There's another thing to solder them back in. And the connection that I got to go to is right here. So I didn't have any real thin red wire, so I got like 18 gauge. Nothing I can do. I'll have to use that. I got to tack it in here. I find a lot of my work is tack soldering. That's the only way you can do these things. I'll tell you, this is one of the best tools you can have, this Xlite P8 1/4 inch. I could not have done this without it. I'm going to tighten up this this cap here, bathtub cap.
Well, we got a Mickey Mouse again here. I can't read this wire, will not reach here unless I push that all the way in. I can't get my soldering iron in. So we're going to have to add a piece, and I don't have the right color wire, but I'm not going to worry about it. We'll do the same thing as we did here. I need to connect it right here. So we're going to use a little piece of heat shrink on it. I don't have heat shrink that's going to shrink down small enough. But we're going to do, I didn't really want to do this, but I have no choice. Absolutely no choice. I didn't really want to do this, but I have no choice. Absolutely no choice.
I didn't really want to do this, but I have no choice. Absolutely no choice.
Alright, so now I can reach that without any problem.
Well, it's on there. I don't know how good, but it's on there. And it's heat shrunk over here, so it should be okay. But when I get all this back together, I'll make sure nothing's touching, you know, onto anything else. The last thing I wanted to do was to union splice these things like this. In other words, splice add wires to it. I did not want to do that. But I had no choice.
Well, this is turned out to be a real splicer. I got to add on to wire what I had labeled wire A, which went right here at the junction of these two diodes. But in order for me to work on it, I got to add about 2 to 3 inches of wire. So in other words, we're going to have 3 splicers in here. And hopefully I don't have to splice on the transistor wires. I don't think so, because when I push that in, I'll be out like this, but I'll still be able to get in there because I was able to get them off with the soldering iron. So let me go find a piece of wire in my junk box, whatever color it is, and see what I can come up with. Alright, we did another splice here, and I had a small, fairly thin piece of yellow wire here. So now we can make the connections. Now this way I can pull it out and I can do everything. This is a power supply, so it's not like you're working with RF. So it's the only way. Even if I was working with RF, if I couldn't get at something, I'd have to extend it. I had no choice. It's either that or it don't get fixed. So now we can make our connection, which goes up to the union of these two diodes here. Well, as you can see, I've got it tacked on here and try to protect it. Thank goodness I saved these 2 heat sink things from my old shop. I had those for many years. So now the only thing I got to do is connect up the transistor, and I'm going to try this out, make sure it doesn't go up in smoke with this thing unbolted, but I will put a ground clip between here and here to make sure everything's grounded properly before I put all the screws back in. On this board, I went in reverse and put the screw in first and the nut on it. And on the other one, I didn't have to do that because it was right on the end. Alright, I'm going to inspect this after I get all the wires back on here. And I think we may be able to try it out. Well, I'm going to have to extend this because I cannot slide them on there. I cannot see. It's like threading a needle with a piece of thread. There's a hole, there's a loop in these. I just slid these right off. But I can't get them back on. I can't. I spent about 10 minutes off camera on it. So I'm going to add wire to this, about 2 inches. So this board can be sitting just like this and I can work on it. I'll just add a piece of wire to this. I'll wrap it around here and I'll tack it on real quick so it don't hurt the transistor. I wish I didn't have to do that, but it can't be done any other way. Well, I thought I'd test it out with clip leads before I extended those wires because I was kind of anxious to see what it's doing. I'm getting my proper voltages here. I'm about just a little bit low on the negative 15. I'm getting about 14 and a half or so. But nothing. There's nothing on the screen. So, story of my life. Story of my life. I did have a display when I tacked in a capacitor. And nothing smoking. So, I think it's going to be another well, this one will be a shelf queen. That's all it'll be. I'm not going to junk it or anything else. It'll just be a shelf queen. The CRT lights, I can see a filament lit here. I'm not hearing any high voltage squeal. I did hear it. I'm hearing a tiny bit of noise. Very, 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 very faint. But, there's a high voltage adjust in here. I have no idea. High voltage test point, but it doesn't tell you what it's supposed to be. But there's nothing on the screen. Nothing.